The LGBTQI plus community has expressed disappointment at the outcome of the ANC NEC election. There has been a flood of mixed reaction to yesterday's NEC announcement for, among other factors, lack of inclusion, from race to gender to the snubbing of alliance partners. The newly elected NEC list doesn't appear to sit well with many. We're joined by Mpho Buntse, a queer activist currently serving as National Head of Communication for Embrace Diversity Movement and leader of the ANCWL LGBTQI plus desk. Mpho, very good afternoon. Thanks for your time today. Now talk to us about why the queer community is disappointed.
Good afternoon, Hugo, and your Newzroom Afrika viewers. First and foremost, I think it's important that our expression of concern is not misconstrued with us fighting the outcomes of the ANC NEC list. But to say 26 years post the signing of the Constitution, we still have the LGBTIQ plus community protected, recognized by the Constitution. But also when you look at the African National Congress as a constitution that is also explicit about issues of non-sexism, but also an affirmation that has been done through commitments at national policy conferences to say that the ANC as a leader of society needs to make sure that its leadership reflects the microcosm of society. So coming out of this conference, as the LGBTIQ plus community, we are concerned, we are embarrassed to say the least, that out of a list of about 200 initially, we still come out of conference with the 80 that does not recognize the LGBTIQ plus community. So that's where we are as Embrace Diversity Movement, to say over and above everything, we understand issues of democratic centralism, but also it should be acknowledged that there is a lack of political will from the branches of the ANC, from the delegates who were entrusted to vote for an inclusive NEC at the last conference of the ANC, which did not happen. So it raises so many questions to say, are we still going to remain on the sidelines where our struggle will be represented by those who do not have our lived experiences? So in essence, that's where we are coming from. We are not contesting the outcome of the NEC list. In fact, we are happy that this conference was a success. This conference actually lead us to a point where we'll be able to start rebuilding and renewing the organization. But we are not happy that it still continues to marginalize queer voices.
Well, you talk about a contingent of 200 and there being no representation of members of the LGBTIQ plus. Are there members who contest, members of your community who contested and publicly LGBTIQ plus members to be voted into any of those NEC positions?
Hugo, you would remember that in 2019, we launched the LGBTIQ plus desk of the ANC Women's League. And at the core of the setting up of this structure was to ensure that we advance issues of LGBTQ within the ranks of not only the Women's League, but the mass democratic movement in its entirety, working, of course, with Embrace Diversity Movement. And what would follow that was this understanding that we are working towards the next conference. And this would have been our first conference in which, with a consensus, we advanced the name of Comrade Steve Litsike. And this consensus had been seen prior to even branches engaging on the nomination process. We know of other comrades in their small little pockets came out to say, as a queer woman, I would also like to contest. But in managing the numbers and also managing expectations, we had to take a decision that to allow branches of the ANC to understand where we're coming from. Let's have a consensus and submit one name. hence we reached the name of Comrade Steve Litsike. So this had been problematic to us because we saw a number of branches actually coming out and saying, we do not mind supporting your name, we do not mind supporting your candidate, but the problem had always been that there's this expectation from branches, from delegates, that they should be compensated for supporting a name. And I think we find ourselves here today where in the name of Comrade Steve Litsike did not make it in the NEC, mainly because of this culture of expectation to pay for votes. So that then is not necessarily discriminatory, is it? Because I'd imagine it impacts anyone who is contesting and not just members of the queer community. No, definitely on the one level. But on the other hand, we are looking at the fact that this appeal had been made. It's not discrimination. In no way we are saying that this is discrimination. But we are saying there is an incredible lack of political will, which has been seen prior to even us contesting the NEC, but with other programs wherein we are seeing branches of the ANC at the grassroots level not understanding what is it that we are doing. I am telling you that now, since our launch in 2019 as a desk, we still have many branches of the ANC Women's League and subsequently the ANC that are still not looking to engage the LGBTIQ plus desk because they believe that it has no place within the structure. So it's more than anything, it's the lack of political will as opposed to an issue of discrimination. Discrimination is another story because we understand the commitment that had been done by the ANC Women's League 2015 Lekgotla, which took a decision to formulate a desk. But over and above that, when we look at the last two policy conferences of the ANC, they went deep into understanding and engaging on issues of LGBTIQ. So we are not saying it's discrimination, but we are saying it's lack of political will from the grassroots level. And this could be attributed to the fact that the ANC at the highest level does not invest much attention into ensuring that we assist our branches at grassroots level to change how they view issues of LGBTQ, to learn and unlearn about the posture and position of the LGBTQ within the space of mass democratic movement. So let's talk about your work that you've done over the last 3 years that the desk has been set up. One might suggest that you have not achieved the level, certainly, of acceptance in the ANC as you would like to have achieved. Is this a fair statement? If it is, what are your plans moving forward? First of all, I think part of our work post-launch had always been this position that we believe that this desk is not positioned where it should be positioned. We find ourselves at a place where when the Women's League discusses issues of leadership and deployment, we are sidelined as gay affirming men or anyone who does not affirm as a woman. So that's why we have always held the position that the ANC Women's League LGBTIQ plus desk may be a beautiful thing, but it's wrongly positioned because we'll constantly find ourselves on the fence. Our proposal moving forward is that the incoming NEC of the ANC leadership should ensure that this desk is repositioned where it should be to address any issues of LGBTQ so that no one is left behind. We are saying over and above this, our work over the last 3 years has ensured that we empower the leadership of the ANC, branches of the ANC, provinces of the ANC, in understanding the dynamics that makes up LGBTIQ plus organizing in contemporary South Africa. But over and above that, to say, where do we see our representation moving forward? You remember a couple of years ago, we saw differences in terms of voting when South African ambassador at the United Nations voted against the key LGBTIQ plus vote meant to protect the human rights of the LGBTQ globally. So these double standards still tell us that beyond the constitution of the country, the constitution of the ANC, there's still loopholes that still needs to be filled. And they can only be filled by having representation from the LGBTIQ plus community. I mean, there's no better way to represent a person by allowing themselves to represent themselves.
Mpho Buntse, queer activist, currently serving as National Head of Communication for Embrace Diversity Movement and leader of the ANCWL LGBTQI plus desk. Appreciate your time this afternoon.